Dear students, myself Dr. Narendra Rally, Assistant Professor, PG Department of Commerce and Management Studies, VSM College Autonomous, Ramachandrapuram. I am here to explain you on the concepts of profit planning and analysis. In the earlier videos, you have understood what is profit planning, what are the factors influencing profit, what are the factors that are limiting the profit, and a criteria for earning a good profit, as well as the functions of profit. Now, in this video, I would like to explain you the theories of profit. The following are various theories of profit: rent theory of profit, wage theory of profit, risk theory of profit, dynamic theory of profit, innovation theory of profit, uncertainty bearing theory of profit, marginal productivity theory of profit. So let us now understand rent theory of profit. Rent theory of profit. This theory was propounded by first the American economist Walker. The American economist Walker. Yes. It is based on the ideas of Senior and J.S. Mill. According to Mill, the extra gains which any producer obtains through the superior talents for business or superior business arrangements are very much of a kind similar to rent. Professor Walker says that profits are of the same genus as rent. His theory of profit, Professor Walker says that the theory of rent says that like profits are also similar to rent. Rent is the reward for land. It is the factor income for investing in land, while profit is the reward for ability of the entrepreneur. So just land differs from one another in fertility, entrepreneurs differ from one another in ability. As I know, one land has been good for cultivation, another land may be not that much effective for cultivation. Like that, entrepreneurs or managers also differ in their knowledge and ability to generate profits in the organization. It is the intra-marginal lands that earn surplus over marginal lands. So, also intra-marginal entrepreneurs earn surplus over marginal entrepreneurs. Professor Walker says that those managers or entrepreneurs working not just for the salary, working more than just a salary, will be able to gain more number of profits rather than just the profit. It is also like he is comparing this with the land, that the land which is a more superior quality will be cultivating more useful than with the land of inferior quality. So the marginal entrepreneur sells his produce at cost price and gets no profit. He secures only the wages of management. Therefore, thus profit does not enter into the cost of production. There are certain criticisms facing by rent theory. So these critics say that there cannot be a perfect similarity. So rent and profit are not compared. They are not similar items. The rent is a different thing. Why? Because you have a land. You just want to give it for the rent purpose. Every month you may get income, but if you don't offer your land for rent, you may not receive anything. But the profit is not like that. The profit will be based on your operational activity. You may get profit sometime, or you may get no profit sometime. But in some rare cases, you may get losses, which is not at all possible in rent or land. So that is why critics say that those two are not similar items. Also, this theory explains profit as a differential surplus rather than the reward for an entrepreneur. The profit is not always reward for the business ability. It can be due to the monopoly power you have, as we discussed that monopoly profit. So it can arise due to the favorable chance that we have. So this theory maintains that no profit entrepreneur just has no rent land. But in practical life, there is no such entrepreneur because the entrepreneur has the ability or not be gets profit as his reward. The rent is known as expected surplus. It is also the contractual payment, but the profit is uncertain. Walker has analyzed only surplus profit, but profit can be several other types. Walker failed to understand the true nature of profit. According to Walker, profit arose on account of the ability of entrepreneur. The critics point out that profit is not the reward for undertaking risk, but it is reward for avoiding the avoidance of risk. So this is all about the rent theory. Professor Walker explained this rent theory. The second one is wage theory of profit. Yes, this theory was propounded by Taussig, the American economist. Taussig. Taussig is an American economist. According to this theory, profit is also the type of wage which is given to the entrepreneur for the services rendered by him. In other words, profit is the wage of entrepreneur which accrues to him on account of his ability. Remember, if you observe the factors of production, land, labor, capital, and the entrepreneur or organization. For land, you will get rent. For labor, you'll get wages. For capital, you will get interest, and for the entrepreneur or organization, you will get fee. While of production, the following are the factor incomes. And if you observe, the factor income for entrepreneurship is profit. Therefore, uh, uh, Professor Taussig explained the same. The profit is the wage of entrepreneur, which accrues to him on account of his ability. Just as laborer receive wages for his services, the entrepreneur work hard to get him in the production. The only difference is that while laborer renders physical services, entrepreneur puts some mental work. Therefore, an entrepreneur is not different from a doctor, lawyer, teacher, etc., who do mental work. The profit is thus the form of wage. So, Taussig's explanation is that profit is a wage that an entrepreneur receives. Again, the criticism for this theory is that the main defect of this theory is that it does not make a distinction between wage and profit. The wages are fixed and certain, but profits are always uncertain. For example, an employee, whether you get profits or not, there is a chance that you have to there is no option. You have to give him the salary, or if you are not able to provide the salary, you may terminate him. But once you appointed as a labor, once you appointed as an employee, you have to give the wages and salaries. But an entrepreneur will not receive profit every time like that. Being an entrepreneur, you'll not get profit just being an entrepreneur for some organization. You'll get profit only if your company has been succeeded. So therefore, this theory is being triggered with the criticism. So the entrepreneurs undergo the risk in production, but the laborer undertakes no such risk. And the entrepreneur bears the entire responsibility. The entrepreneur bears the entire responsibility while the laborer need not to do so. And the next theory is risk theory of profit. This theory is associated with the American economist Hawley. Hawley. Yes, this theory is associated with American economist Hawley. According to him, profit is the reward for risk taking in business. You observe in finance there is a quotation. Higher the risk, more will be the profits. So the same. The theory is associated with risk-taking businesses. Risk-taking is supposed to be the most important function of an entrepreneur. Every production that is undertaken in anticipation of demand involves risk. So Peter F. Drucker says that there are four types of risk: replacement, obsolescence, risk proper, and the uncertainty. The replacement and obsolescence are calculated and therefore they are insured. But the other two are unforeseen risks, risk proper and uncertainty. It is for bearing such risk profit is paid to entrepreneur. No entrepreneur will be willing to undertake risk if he gets only the normal return. Therefore, the reward for risk taking must be higher than the actual value of the risk. If entrepreneur does not receive the reward, he will not be prepared to undertake the risk. Thus, the higher the risk, the greater is the possibility of profit. Again, this theory is also triggered with some criticism. Risk taking is not the only entrepreneurial function which leads to emergence of profits. Profits are also due to the organizational and coordinating ability of the entrepreneur. It is also the reward for an innovation. So, according to Carver, the profit is paid to an entrepreneur not for beaming the risk, but for minimizing and avoiding the risk. People say, since I may take the risk, I may get the profit. But Professor Carver, one of the criticists, Professor Carver says that you are not getting the profits because you are the risk taker. You are getting the profits because either you minimize the risk or you avoid the risk. Only because of these two things, that is either minimizing the risk or avoiding the risk, you are getting the profits. Therefore, it is not every risk that gives profit. It is the unforeseen and non-insured risks that accounts for profit. And the next theory is dynamic theory of profit. Professor J.B. Clark propounded the dynamic theory of profit. Professor J.B. Clark propounded the dynamic theory of profit in the year 1900. To him, profit is the difference between the price and cost of production of the commodity. The profit is the result of progressive change in an organized society. The progressive change is possible only in a dynamic state. According to Clark, the whole economic society is divided into the organized and unorganized society. The organized society is further divided into static and dynamic state. Only in the dynamic state, profit arises. In the static state, the five generic changes such as size of the population, technical knowledge, method of production of the firms, and the tax and the size of industry, the wants of the people do not take place. Everything do not take place. Therefore, everything is stagnant. The element of time is non existent and there is no uncertainty. There is not risk of any kind to the entrepreneur. The price of the good will be equal to the cost of production. Hence, profit do not rise at all. The entrepreneur would get wages for his labor and interest on his capital. If the price of the commodity is higher than cost of production, competition would reduce the price again to the level of cost of production. Therefore, the profit is being eliminated. The presence of perfect competition makes the price equal to the cost of production. Since cost selling prices are always equal, there can be no profit beyond wages for the routine work of supervision. It is well known that society has always been dynamic. Several changes takes place. So the clerk has identified five major changes that are constantly taking place in a society. Changes in changes in size of population, changes in supply of capital, changes in changes in production techniques, changes in forms of industrial organizations, and changes in human needs. So, Professor Clark identifies that the changes are size of population, supply of capital, changes in production technologies, changes in the forms of industrial organizations, and the changes in human needs. These dynamic changes affect the demand and supply of commodities, which leads to emergence of profit. For example, a firm may improve its production technique and reduce its cost, thereby increase the profits. The typical dynamic change is an invention. So this enables the entrepreneur to produce more and reduce the costs, leading to the emergence of profits. Here, in the dynamic is also having some criticisms. So it is wrong to say that there is no profit in static state. Every entrepreneur is paid profit irrespective of the state of economy. So this theory does not fully appreciate the nature of entrepreneurial function. A mere change in an economy would not give rise to the profits. This theory assumes that the existence of perfect competition and a static state, but they are far from reality. Why? Because the markets are almost imperfect and the markets are not in a static state. Profit arises because of dynamic changes, but Professor Knight says that it's only unforeseen changes that give rise to profit. The next theory is innovation theory of profit. This theory was propounded by Schumpeter. This theory is more or less similar to that of Clark's theory. Instead of five changes mentioned by Clark, Schumpeter explains the change caused by innovations in the production process. So, Schumpeter says that an entrepreneur earns profit due to because of the changes in because of the changes in innovation. He uses the term innovation in a sense wider than that of the changes mentioned by the clerk. Here, the innovation refers to all those changes in production process with an object of reducing the cost of a commodity so as to create a gap between existing price of the commodity and its new costs. Innovation may take any shape like introduction of a new technique or a new plant or a change in the internal structure or organizational setup or a firm or a change in the quality of inputs, a new form of energy, the better method of salesmanship, etc. Therefore, Schumpeter makes a distinct between invention and innovation. Innovation is brought about mainly for reducing cost of production. It is cost reducing agent. The profit is reward for this strategic role. Innovations are not possible by all entrepreneurs. Only exceptional entrepreneurs can innovate. They are capable of tapping new resources, technical knowledge, and reduce the cost of production. Therefore, the main motive for introducing innovation is the desire to earn a profit. Profit is therefore the cause of innovation, and vice versa. The profits are temporary of nature. The pioneer who innovates earns the abnormal profit for a short period. The emergence of motorcar industry may in turn stimulate new investments in the construction of highways, rubbers, tires, petroleum products. Profits are thus causing and affecting the innovation. Profits are caused by innovation and disappear by imitation. Innovation profit is therefore never permanent in the opinion of Schumpeter. Professor Schumpeter also explained his view that on functions of entrepreneur. The entrepreneur organizes the business and combines the various factors of production. But this is not his real function. This will not yield him the profit. The real function of an entrepreneur is to introduce innovations in the business. Criticism. This theory concentrates exclusively on innovation. So, not many times innovation is possible due to many reasons. This theory does not consider profit as a reward. So, according to Schumpeter, it is the capitalist, not the entrepreneur, who undertakes the risk. It is an incomplete theory because it has failed to explain all factors that influence the profit. He took only the innovation factor. And the next theory is uncertainty bearing of profit. This theory was propounded by an American economist, Professor Frank H. Knight. Professor Frank H. Knight. This theory starts on the foundations of Hollis risk-bearing theory. This theory foundations of, you remember, Hollis risk-bearing theory. Knight agrees with Hawley that profit is the reward of risk taking. There are two types of risks, foreseeable and unforeseeable. According to Knight, the unforeseeable risk is called the uncertainty beaming or bearing. Sorry, this is not bearing, it is beaming. Knight regards profit as the reward for bearing non-insurable risk and uncertainties. He distincts between non-insurable and insurable risk. Certain risks are not measurable. The profitability of their occurrence can be statistically calculated. The risks of fire, theft, flood, and death by accident are insurable. These risks are now borne by the insurance company. The premium paid for insurance is included in the cost of protection. Therefore, according to Knight, these unforeseen risks are not genuine economic profits. In other words, insurable risk does not give rise to profit. Profit is due to non-insurable risks, that is, unforeseeable risk. Some of the non-insurable risks which arise in modern business are competitive risks, technical risks, the risk of government intervention, cyclical risk of demand. Yeah. What is this? What are the unforeseeable risks? He says that he says that competitive risk, technical risk, the government intervention, and the cyclical risks and the demand risk are the unforeseeable risk. You don't exactly say how much risk it is. They are unforeseeable. You don't know when the competitor entered the risk. You don't know when a competitor reduces the price. You don't know when the competitor puts the offers. Technical risk. You don't know when the technology is being changed, and you don't know when the government will intervene into your business, and you don't even know the cyclical risks, that is due to the business recession or depression, etc. And you don't know when will be a change in a existing demand. Therefore all these are unforeseeable risks. Addressing only these risks, an entrepreneur earns the profit. But according to this theory, profit is the reward for uncertainty bearing. Critics point out that sometimes an entrepreneur earns no profit in spite of uncertainty bearing. It is not possible to measure uncertainty as depicted in this theory. In modern business, ownership is separate from control. So therefore, decision making is done by the salaried managers who control and organize the corporation. And the next theory, and the last theory is marginal productivity theory of profit. Marginal productivity theory of profit. The general theory of distribution is also applied to the factor entrepreneur according to the Professor Chapman. Profits are equal to the marginal worth. This theory was propounded by Professor Chapman. The profits are equal to the marginal worth of an entrepreneur and are determined by the marginal productivity of the entrepreneur. When the marginal productivity is high, profits will be high. Just as the marginal revenue, productivity of any factor represents the demand curve. But this series also have some criticism. This theory is not a satisfactory theory of profit because it is very difficult to calculate marginal productivity of an entrepreneur. Like the factors of production, marginal revenue of productivity of entrepreneurship is meaningless concept in case of a firm. This theory is based on homogeneity of entrepreneur in an industry, but entrepreneurs are not at all homogeneous. This theory also failed to explain entrepreneurs sometimes earn windfall or chance gains. In conclusion, so we have learned all these. I hope you understand the theories of profit. In conclusion, it can be stated that there are essentially three kinds of profit theories which have been developed during the last 2 centuries. The functional theory of profit regards as the profit as a reward for the factors of production. Secondly, rent theory of profit rewards profit as a residual income. And the institutional theory emphasizes the unearned nature of profit as monopoly profit. None of the theories is satisfactory. Each theory explains profits in terms of one function rather than in terms of all functions. Economists are of the opinion that it is very difficult to state an adequate theory of profit. Thank you all.